Storytime with Herbal Roots zine. I'm Kristine Brown, and today I'm going to read to you a story I wrote for Herbal Roots zine from issue number 102, Gregarious Ground Ivy. Do you recognize this mint family herb? Ground ivy can often be found by his scent that wafts up when you walk through a patch of it or when you mow it over. Ground ivy is probably most commonly known in the herbal world for his usefulness in being able to remove heavy metals such as lead, mercury, and aluminum from the body due to his high levels of vitamin C, which bind with the soft, heavy metals. Matthew Wood also surmises that ground ivy may be useful for doing the same with petrochemical pollutants as well. Ground ivy has a long history of being used for chelation and is listed in various historical herbals for treating painter's colic or lead colic, as lead poisoning was known by. As a hepatoprotective herb, ground ivy protects the liver from these heavy metals by binding with them so that they can be filtered and removed from the body through the kidneys. In addition, ground ivy is useful for many other ailments, including eye issues, kidney problems, chronic sciatica pain, digestive and urinary issues, inner ear inflictions, and hot, wet respiratory conditions. Traditionally, ground ivy was used in brewing ale, earning him his nickname as Alehoof. Although ground ivy could be eaten, this plant is not very palatable to eat in large portions. Ground ivy is commonly known by many names, including Gill over the ground, Gill over the hill, Lizzie run up the hedge, Robin run in the hedge, Creeping Charlie, Cat's foot, Cat's paw, Turnhoof, and Alehoof. That's quite a lot of names for one plant. Today's story is The Plant of Many Names. Ina, Mina, Mona, Might. For which name will the fairies fight? Charlie, Ivy, Robin, or Gill? Which name is the better still? In the earliest of times, the gnomes and fairies were given the task of helping Mother Earth to create the plants. Some were given the task of creating the trees, while others were given the task of the bushes and shrubs. Still more were assigned flowers and fungi. A select group was given vines. Succulents and cacti were a particular favorite of the group that was given them. Finally, the last category, ground covers and creeping plants, were assigned to a motley crew of 3 fairies and a gnome: Gill, Ivy, Robin, and Charlie. Now, this group had a hard time agreeing on anything. Each plant they created was a hodgepodge of the plants. They created a creeping thyme, which was basically a thyme that, well, creeped over the ground. Another plant, speedwell, had the tiniest of leaves and flowers, making it difficult for anyone to really make out the plant up close, though it was quite visible with its patches of green leaves and pretty purple and white flowers. On and on they went, creating an assortment of plants. Finally, Mother Earth told them one more plant was all that they could do. Well, this put the 4 in a tizzy, as they all wanted to give the plant everything that they had neglected to give the other plants. Ivy spoke up first. "I wish for the plant to have dark green leaves like my namesake, Ivy." Gill replied, "Then the plant should root easily wherever the stems touch over the ground." "Only if the flowers can be blue like a robin's egg," retorted Robin, wishing for her namesake to be included in the planting. Gruff Charlie, the gnome, crept up behind Robin and grumbled, "Then the leaves had better be the size of my cat's paws." As they spoke, their plant began to form in front of their eyes. They continued to tweak and add things, Give it whiskers like the cat. Each flower should be held onto the stem like with a bugle. Why not make the entire flower shaped like one? And so on until they finally had a pretty good specimen built up in front of them. They all agreed that they worked together well as a team and smiled proudly at Mother Earth. "Very good," Mother Earth remarked as she admired their handiwork. "I can see you've put a lot of thought and effort into this plant. What have you decided to name it?" The four looked at each other in dismay. They hadn't thought of a name. They had been too busy giving it so many characteristics that a name never crossed their mind. All at once, the four each shouted out a name they thought was appropriate. But because they all called it out at once, it came out something like this: "Gill over the ground ivy, runaway with Robin, creeping on Charlie's cat paws." "I see," commented Mother Earth very carefully. "Perhaps you need a bit more time to think that part over." She started to walk away. "There's no need," huffed Gill. "Gill over the ground is the perfect name." "What?" exclaimed Ivy. "I hardly say so. Ground ivy is a much better choice." Snorted Robin. "Everyone knows the flower is the most important aspect of the plant, therefore it should be named after me. I say Runaway Robin is the perfect name." "Pshaw!" bellowed Charlie the gnome. "Either Creeping Charlie or Cat's Paws after my designs is the best name." And so the motley group of beings could not agree on the plant's name and went off with the start of it to their own kingdoms. Each told their kingdom of their own chosen name, and from that day forward, the new plant was known as Gill over the Ground, or Ground Ivy, or Runaway Robin, or Creeping Charlie, or Cat's Paws, depending on where in the world it was found. Regardless of this plant's many names, it definitely lives up to its reputation of being a ground cover, and people often either strongly love it or strongly hate it. But we herbalists know that this plant has many virtues, and we happily let it spread over our yards so that we can harvest it with abandon. What shall you call it? Ina, Mina, Mona, Might, for which name will the fairies fight? Charlie, Ivy, Robin, or Gill? Which name is the better still? I hope you enjoyed today's story. If you'd like to learn more about ground ivy, you can find the Ground Ivy ebook in my shop. I'll put a link in the description below. Thanks for visiting Herbal Roots Zine for Storytime, and I'll see you next time.